The lighthouse on Blackstone Island had stood for over a century, guiding ships safely through treacherous waters. But the last keeper's journal told a darker story, one filled with dread and terror. Thomas Gray was the final keeper, assigned to the island during a harsh winter storm. His entries began routinely, notes about the weather, the ships passing by. But as days passed, his tone changed. He wrote of strange noises echoing through the tower, footsteps where none should be, whispers carried by the wind. One night, he described seeing a shadowy figure at the edge of the cliffs, glowing faintly. On the worst night, Thomas wrote about a presence that refused to leave, watching him from the beacon's light. It whispered promises and threats, urging him to join it. The next morning, the lighthouse was found abandoned. Thomas was never seen again. Locals say his spirit still haunts the lighthouse, forever trapped between the rocks and the raging sea. Harold was a seasoned train engineer, known for his punctuality and steady hands. One foggy night, as he guided his freight train through the countryside, something unusual happened. At a remote station, a woman appeared on the platform, a pale figure dressed in a vintage gown, soaked from the mist. Harold stopped the train and invited her aboard. She didn't speak, but simply stared ahead. As the train approached the next station, Harold turned to tell her they'd arrived, but the seat was empty. Confused, he asked the station master about the woman. The old man's face turned grim. "That's Eleanor," he said softly. "She died on these tracks over 50 years ago. She's been waiting for her ride home ever since." Harold felt a chill run down his spine as the fog thickened around the train. When the Martin family moved into their newly inherited countryside home, they were overwhelmed by its sheer size and age. It belonged to Uncle Harold, a reclusive antique collector who had died under mysterious circumstances. Among his vast belongings was a beautifully crafted Victorian-style dollhouse, eerie in its detail, almost too perfect. It stood 4 feet tall, with working miniature lamps, polished wooden floors, and wallpaper faded with age. Inside were porcelain dolls, a man, woman, 2 children, and even a dog. Lucy, the couple's 8-year-old daughter, was immediately enchanted by it. She spent hours staring into its rooms, whispering conversations to the dolls. But it wasn't long before strange things began to happen. One night, Lucy screamed. Her parents rushed in and found her trembling beside the dollhouse. "The mommy doll moved," she whispered. "She turned her head and looked at me." They chalked it up to a dream, comforting her back to sleep. But over the following days, the dollhouse began rearranging itself. The dining room chairs shifted places. A lamp that was once broken now flickered with a faint yellow light. The mother doll began to appear in different rooms, sometimes holding a knife from the kitchen set. Worse, the events inside the dollhouse began to mirror real life. One morning, the father doll was found lying face down on the attic floor. That evening, Lucy's dad fell from the attic stairs, breaking his arm. The next week, the child doll went missing entirely, just as Lucy was found locked inside the basement, crying that they didn't want her to leave. Terrified, the Martins researched the house's past and discovered a horrific truth. A wealthy family once lived there, and their daughter, Eloise, died tragically in the fire that destroyed the original home. She was obsessed with her dollhouse, which survived the fire untouched. Legend had it that Eloise's spirit had never left, that she had moved into the dollhouse forever. The Martins tried to burn it, but the flames would not touch the wood. They dumped it into the lake nearby, but the next morning it sat on their front porch, wet, but perfectly preserved. Now, Lucy won't sleep unless the dollhouse is beside her bed. Her voice has changed. She speaks to Eloise in a language her parents can't understand. Her eyes seem distant, her smile too wide. And every night, the dolls moved just a little bit closer to the edge, waiting. It was a last-minute business trip when Raymond checked into the Crescent Hollow Hotel, an aging but elegant building nestled in the heart of New Orleans. The concierge, an older woman with pale eyes, handed him an old-fashioned brass key and warned, "Don't look in the mirror after midnight." Ray chuckled at the superstition but felt a chill as he entered room 409. The room was grand but dated, floral wallpaper peeling at the corners, a dusty chandelier overhead, and a large antique mirror mounted above the dresser. That first night, Ray heard shuffling in the hallway around 3 a.m. Thinking it was a guest, he peeked through the peephole, only to see a pitch-black figure standing unnaturally still just outside his door. No features, no face. Just a silhouette. When he opened the door, the hallway was empty. Over the next few nights, the disturbances escalated. Lights flickered without reason. His belongings were subtly rearranged. One morning, he found muddy footprints across the carpet leading from the bathroom to the mirror, though his shoes were clean. On the fourth night, he returned late and caught his reflection blinking, a full second after he had. That night, unable to sleep, he stared into the mirror. At 12:17 a.m., the lights dimmed, and the reflection behind him changed. A tall, dark shape emerged behind him in the mirror's glass. Slowly, it lifted a hand and placed it on his shoulder. Yet he felt nothing. Terrified, Ray turned, but nothing was there. When he looked back at the mirror, the reflection grinned. Though he wasn't smiling, he ran to the lobby and demanded to check out immediately. The concierge didn't seem surprised. She simply nodded and said, "He always chooses someone on the fourth night." Later, Ray found forums filled with stories from past guests, all staying in room 409, all seeing the same faceless shadow. Some claimed to have lost time, others disappeared entirely. Ray still avoids mirrors after midnight. He keeps his reflection in the corner of his eye in case it ever moves on its own again. The Moros thought they'd found a dream deal, a quaint farmhouse deep in Pennsylvania's quiet hills. Isolated, peaceful, and priced impossibly low. Too good to pass up. Within days, they'd moved in with their 10-year-old son, Max. It started on the first night. Max complained of whispers behind his bedroom wall. "They're talking about me," he said, trembling. His parents assured him it was just the old house settling, but the next morning, Max refused to go back inside the room. "They said they were coming," he whispered. At first, the parents dismissed it as childhood imagination. But then Sarah, Max's mother, heard them too. Soft murmurs when the house was dead quiet. Faint voices slipping through the cracks behind the wallpaper, speaking in fragmented phrases. "She's here now. Dig deeper. Don't look away." Her husband Thomas tore apart the walls, suspecting vermin or bad piping, but there was nothing inside, only dust, cobwebs, and cold, empty space. Yet the voices grew bolder. Sometimes they called Max by name. Sometimes they mimicked Sarah's own voice, luring her toward dark corners of the house. Then came the night Max vanished. The door to his room was locked from the inside. When Thomas broke it down, all he found was the bed, neatly made. No broken windows, no signs of escape. But etched into the wall in what looked like fingernail scratches were the words, "He's inside now." Search teams combed the area. No sign of the boy. But Sarah kept hearing him, laughing through the walls, sobbing some nights. Once, while sleeping in his room, she woke up to see Max's face staring back from the crack in the drywall, lips moving silently before fading back into the shadows. Thomas begged her to leave the house, but she wouldn't go. "He's still here," she whispered, rocking back and forth in Max's empty room. "He just needs me to listen." Weeks later, Thomas returned with police. The house was empty. Sarah was gone. In her place, behind the wall they tore down, was a tunnel, Small, damp, and impossible to have been dug by hand in such a short time. Carved into the stone were dozens of names, and at the very end, in smeared chalk, a message. We all live in the walls now. The Appalachian woods have always carried an eerie reputation. Locals call them alive, but not in a poetic way. They whisper warnings, passed down through generations. Warnings that say, if you feel watched, don't look back. If you hear your name, don't answer. And if you leave the trail, you won't return. Lena, a college student studying folklore, wasn't superstitious. She took it as local color, perfect for her thesis. So she planned a solo 3-day hike into the deepest part of the forest, armed with a map, gear, and audio recorders. The first day was uneventful, peaceful even. Birds chirped. The canopy filtered warm sunlight, but on the second night, things changed. She woke at 2:12 a.m. to the sound of twigs snapping. Not close, but surrounding her camp, circling. She froze, clutching her flashlight, but saw nothing beyond the edge of the tent. Then came a whisper. It was her mother's voice, calling her name softly from the dark. Lena, sweetheart, come here. Lena's blood ran cold. Her mother lived 3 states away. She didn't move, didn't speak, just sat there in silence until the sun rose. In the morning, she found footprints, barefoot, human, encircling her tent multiple times, leading into the trees. She packed up, shaken, and started the hike back. But the trail was gone. She followed her GPS, retraced her steps, but the landmarks had shifted. Trees weren't where they'd been. A ridge that should have been to her right was now behind her. The voice continued, "He's not talking now. I am." Emergency crews arrived the next morning to an empty station. Coffee still hot, mic still on. Cal was gone. The last 20 minutes of his show were recorded on a listener's tape. It's never been aired again, but conspiracy forums have transcripts. It ends with Cal whispering, "There's someone in the room, but there's no door." In the decades since, every year on March 3rd, the night he vanished, KTRD's signal mysteriously reactivates between 1:30 and 2 a.m. No DJs, no power, just the same voice. Listeners report hearing old episodes of Midnight Drift, but warped. The music slows, the laughter stutters. Sometimes the voice directly addresses them. "You're still listening. Good. The station has been shut down since 1997, yet the signal still leaks. No one knows where from." When Maya found the apartment listing, it felt too good to be true. A spacious 1-bedroom in downtown Chicago for half the market price? She didn't hesitate. Within days, she signed the lease and moved into Unit 4C. It wasn't until the second night that she noticed the sounds from below. A low creaking, rhythmic tapping, and, occasionally, muffled sobs. Curious, she asked the building manager about the tenant beneath her, Unit 3C. He gave her a strange look. "There's no one down there," he said. "Unit 3C's been empty for years." That night she heard it again. This time it was louder, furniture being dragged, footsteps pacing directly below her bed. When she leaned over the side to listen more closely, a sudden knock struck the floor beneath her. Once, twice, 3 times. She jumped back. Over the next few days, things escalated. Maya would come home to find her drawers open, lights on, faucets running. One morning, she found muddy footprints in the hallway, barefoot, leading from her bedroom to the locked utility door that connected to the basement. She installed a motion camera, aimed at the floor. That night, it recorded 6 seconds of video. The floorboards bulging upward, as though something was trying to push through. She showed the footage to her landlord. Pale and shaken, he confessed the truth. In the 1970s, Unit 3C had belonged to a reclusive man named Elias Brandt, a former mortician. Neighbors complained of foul smells and strange noises. When police finally entered, they found Elias dead in a sealed crawl space, his body mummified and surrounded by makeshift coffins. each containing animal bones, locks of hair, and doll heads with human teeth. The apartment was condemned, but the building was sold, and the new owners quietly covered it up, leaving Unit 3C locked and forgotten. Until Maya moved in. That night, unable to sleep, she heard whispering through the vent. She pressed her ear against it and heard her name repeated in a low voice. Maya, come down. Then the basement light flicked on by itself. Police arrived to find the apartment empty. Maya's belongings were still there, but she was gone. The only clue? Her mattress, dragged halfway across the room, stopping directly above the floorboards where the tapping first began. In rural Pennsylvania, tucked behind a forgotten church and surrounded by towering pine trees, lies Fairmore Cemetery, a place local kids whisper about but never visit after dark. The legend? If you stare too long at the angel statue near the center and blink, it moves. Logan, a college photography student, didn't believe the stories. He was working on a project about decay and time and thought Fairmore's crumbling headstones and overgrown paths would make perfect material. He convinced his friend Rachel to come along just before dusk. They parked at the rusted gate and stepped into a world that felt unnaturally quiet. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of dead leaves beneath their feet. Logan snapped pictures while Rachel wandered, eventually stopping at the statue. The angel. It stood over a child's grave. Wings, chipped, face worn by decades of weather. But its eyes were pristine. Unnervingly so. As if they had never aged, Logan aimed his lens. It's perfect, he said. Rachel frowned. It's looking at me. He laughed. It's a statue. But as he looked through the camera's viewfinder, he froze. The angel's face wasn't serene anymore. Its mouth, once closed in prayer, now hung slightly open, and the eyes, glinting unnaturally, were angled right at him. Rachel touched its base and recoiled. It's warm. A loud snap echoed from behind. They spun around. No one. When they turned back, the angel had moved. Its wings were raised, its fingers extended, and its expression twisted into a grimace. They ran. But the cemetery path warped. Gravestones that weren't there before now blocked their way. Trees seemed to shift positions. Logan tripped. Rachel screamed. The last photo his camera captured, discovered later, was a close-up of the angel, mid-step, mouth wide, teeth visible. Yes, teeth. Only Rachel made it out. She was found wandering the road barefoot, eyes bloodshot, repeating, "Don't blink, don't blink. It only moves when you blink." She's been institutionalized since. The statue? Removed weeks later and stored by authorities, until it disappeared from the evidence room. On a winding road in Vermont stood an abandoned colonial house locals called the Freeze House. No one knew who built it, and no records existed past 1890. The house appeared in none of the county registries, almost like it had erased itself from time. But every few years, someone would enter and never come out. Eric, a seasoned urban explorer and videographer, had made a name filming forgotten ruins. When he heard of the Freeze House, it was like finding buried treasure. He packed his gear and made the trip alone, determined to document everything. From the outside, the house looked oddly preserved. White paint, unpeeled, glass windows still intact. Yet the air around it was cold, even in mid-July. Inside, the floorboards groaned beneath Eric's boots, but the furniture looked untouched. A rocking chair gently swayed, though no wind stirred. Clock hands in every room were stuck at 3:14 a.m. Eric pressed on, filming. In the dining room, a table was set with dusty plates and silverware. As he walked past, one fork clattered to the floor on its own. He laughed nervously, trying to rationalize it. Then his camera glitched. The screen went static. When it returned, he was no longer alone. Sitting at the table were people, pale, silent, dressed in 19th century clothes, but their eyes were wide open, unblinking, and locked on him. He backed away, but the doorway behind him was now a solid wall. The house had changed. Panicked, he ran upstairs, but the halls twisted. Rooms bled into each other. Every mirror reflected a different version of himself, older, rotted, or screaming in silence. The final footage on his camera, recovered later, showed Eric in the attic, whispering frantically into the lens, "It's not a house, it's a trap. It eats years. Every second you're inside, it steals time. I'm not. How long have I? Oh God." Then the screen cut to black. Authorities searched for weeks. The house was right where the GPS said. But now it was just a patch of grass. No foundation. No remains. Only Eric's camera, buried inches beneath the soil, time-stamped 3:14 a.m., the same as every clock inside. To this day, no one knows how the footage was recovered or who left it there. If you want to watch more horror movies like this, please like and comment on the video. You must subscribe to our channel and keep the bell icon all press. Thank you.